try to continue. I did finish reading about Windows 98 today, but Windows 98, that's super old. Let's do this very old computers like the Intel 486 and the Pentium first, the original Pentium. Even the Windows 95, that's to like the Intel 386 and 486. So that's very old, and you're not just getting on the Danish second-hand blue papers. You're not just finding this old gamer computers, this 486, because there's a lot of other males that collect these computers. You're not getting these computers like $100 or $200 cheap. That you can do with some old Pentium 4 computers. Pentium 4 computers and like Pentium dual core. You can get less like $100-$150. But not the really old Intel 386 and 486 old gamer computers. Because males 10 years younger than me. No, if you was a male, age 18, teenager male, in 1995, you will be only age 46 this year. So actually, adults, males, that's like 10 years younger than me, could have this 486 gamer computer back in the early 90s. They are below age 50, so. But there's very old computers. That's like memory, like few megabyte memories, like 100 megabyte or 256 megabyte memory. And the hard drive was less 1 gigabyte, like 5 or 700, few hundred megabytes. Yes, 1 gigabyte is 1000 megabytes. So they had hard drive on few hundred megabytes. But I need to buy some of this. I just tried to start some of the old computers, but I think this screen is not working. I think he did sell me an old screen not working. If you put it to power, it will get power on, but there will be no picture. I think this computer working fine. To buy a new computer monitor, I know I'm 100% sure works to like $150 or $200. I don't have money for that. Now it's 4 p.m. It's hard to get tired, so let's read this. I think. But maybe we could do this Windows ME later. But Windows XP is 35 pages and Windows Vista is 40 pages, so that needs to be tomorrow. So I need a minute to do myself ready in my bed. Yes. Now I need to have a computer monitor. I'm sure works, because then I don't know if the computer monitor not work or my old computers. So, but I will keep buying some more old computers, but not now. Read loud.
Windows 9X. Windows 9X Windows logo 1992 to 2001. .svg. Windows 95 desktop screenshot.png. Screenshot of Windows 95. The first version of Windows in the 9X series developer Microsoft OS Family DOS working state Windows 95 is unsupported as of the 31st of December 2001.1. Windows 98 and ME are even supported as of July 11, 2006.2.3. Source model closed source platform ZIA 32 kernel type monolithic. DOS, Userland Windows API Default User Interface Windows Shell, Graphical, License Proprietary Commercial Software preceded by Windows 3.1x, 1992 to 1993, succeeded by Windows XP, 2001. Windows 9X is a generic term referring to a series of Microsoft Windows computer operating systems produced from 1995 to 2000, which were based on the Windows 95 kernel and its underlying foundation of MS-DOS, 4, both of which were updated in subsequent versions. The first version in the 9X series was Windows 95, which was succeeded by Windows 98 and then Windows ME, which was the third and last version of Windows on the 9X line, until the series was surpassed by Windows XP.5. Windows 9X is predominantly known for its use in home desktops. In 1998, Windows made up 82% of operating system market share. 6. Internal release versions for versions of Windows 9 Zaria 4.x. The internal versions for Windows 95, 98, and ME are 4.0, 4.1, and 4.9, respectively. Previous MS-DOS-based versions of Windows used version numbers of 3.2 or lower. Windows NT, which was aimed at professional users such as networks and businesses, used a similar but separate version number between 3.1 and 4.0. All versions of Windows from Windows XP onwards are based on the Windows encode base. Contents. History: Windows prior to 95. Windows 95. Windows 98. Windows ME. Decline. End of service life. Design kernel user mode. Kernel mode. Registry. Virtual Machine Manager. Software support Unicode. File systems. Event logging and tracing. Security. Network sharing. Hardware support drivers. CPU and bus technologies. MS-DOS MS-DOS virtualization. MS-DOS mode. User interface. See also. References. External links. History. Windows prior to 95. The first independent version of Microsoft Windows, version 1.0, released on the 20th of November, 1985, achieved little popularity. Its name was initially Interface Manager, but Roland Hansen, the head of marketing at Microsoft, convinced the company that the name Windows would be more appealing to consumers. Windows 1.0 was not a complete operating system, but rather an operating environment that extended MS-DOS. Consequently, it shared the inherent flaws and problems of MS-DOS. The second installment of Microsoft Windows, version 2.0, was released on the 9th of December, 1987, and used a real mode memory model, which confined it to a maximum of 1 megabyte of memory. In such a configuration, it could run under another multitasking system like DESC-View, which used the 286 protected mode. Microsoft Windows scored a significant success with Windows 3.0, released in 1990. In addition to our improved capabilities given to native applications, Windows also allowed users to better multitask old MS-DOS-based software compared to Windows /386. Thanks to the introduction of virtual memory. Microsoft developed Windows 3.1, which included several minor improvements to Windows 3.0, but primarily consisted of bug fixes and multimedia support. It also excluded support for real mode, and only ran on an Intel 80286 or better processor. In November 1993, Microsoft also released Windows 3.11, a touch-up to Windows 3.1 which included all of the patches and updates that followed the release of Windows 3.1 in early 1992. Meanwhile, Microsoft continued to develop Windows NT. The main architect of the system was Dave Cutler, one of the chief architects of VMS at Digital Equipment Corporation. 7. Microsoft hired him in August 1988 to create a successor to OS/2, but Cutler created a completely new system instead based on his Mica project at Digital. 8. Microsoft announced at its 1991 Professional Developers Conference its intentions to develop a successor to both Windows NT and Windows 3.1's replacement, Windows 95, codenamed Chicago, which will unify the two into one operating system. This successor was codenamed Cairo. 9. In hindsight, Cairo was a much more difficult project than Microsoft had anticipated and, as a result, NT and Chicago would not be unified until Windows XP. Windows 95. Windows 95 logo. After Windows 3.11, Microsoft began to develop a new consumer-oriented version of the operating system codenamed Chicago. Chicago was designed to have support for 32-bit preemptive multitasking, that of which was available in OS/2 and Windows NT, although a 16-bit kernel would remain for the SARK of backward compatibility. The Win32 API first introduced with Windows NT was adopted as the standard 32-bit programming interface, with Win16 compatibility being preserved through a technique known as thunking. A new GUI was not originally planned as part of the release, although elements of the Kairouser interface were borrowed and added as other aspects of the release, notably plug and play. Slip. Microsoft did not change all of the Windows code to 32-bit. Parts of it remained 16-bit, albeit not direct liaising real mode, for reasons of compatibility, performance and development time. Additionally, it was necessary to carry over design decisions from earlier versions of Windows for reasons of backwards compatibility, even if these design decisions no longer matched a more modern computing environment. These factors immediately began to impact the operating system's efficiency and stability. Microsoft marketing adopted Windows 95 as the product name for Chicago when it was released on August 24, 1995. Microsoft went on to release 5 different versions of Windows 95. Windows 95 Original Release. Windows 95 included Windows 95 OSR1 slipstreamed into the installation. Windows 95B OSR2 included several major enhancements: Internet Explorer, IE 3.0 and full FAT32 file system support. Windows 95B USB OSR 2.1 included basic USB support. Windows 95C OSR 2.5 included all the above features, plus IE 4.0. This was the last 95 version produced. OSR 2, OSR 2.1, and OSR 2.5 were not released to the general public, rather, they were available only to OEMs that would preload the OS onto computers. Some companies sold new hard drives with OSR2 pre-installed, officially justifying this as needed due to the hard drive's capacity. The first Microsoft Plus add-on pack was sold for Windows 95. Windows 98. Windows 98 logo. On the 25th of June, 1998, Microsoft released Windows 98. It included new hardware drivers and better support for the FAT32 file system, which allows support for disk partitions larger than the 2 GB maximum accepted by Windows 95. The USB support in Windows 98 was more robust than the basic support provided by the OEM editions of Windows 95. 10, it also controversially integrated the Internet Explorer 4 browser into the Windows GUI and Windows Explorer File Manager. On the 5th of May 1999, Microsoft released Windows 98 Second Edition, an interim release whose notable features were the addition of Internet connection sharing and improved WDM audio and modem support. Internet connection sharing is a form of network address translation, allowing several machines on a LAN, local area network, to share a single Internet connection. Windows 98 Second Edition has certain improvements over the original release. Hardware support through device drivers was increased. Many minor problems present in the original Windows 98 were found and fixed, which make it, according to many, the most stable release of Windows 9X family, to the extent that commentators used to say that Windows 98's beta version was more stable than Windows 95's final, gamma, version. 11. Windows Me. Windows Millennium Edition, Me. On the 14th of September, 2000, Microsoft introduced Windows Me, Millennium Edition, which upgraded Windows 98 with enhanced multimedia and Internet features. It also introduced the first version of System Restore, which allowed users to revert their system state to a previous known good point in the case of system failure. The first version of Windows Movie Maker was introduced as well. Windows Me was conceived as a quick one-year project that served as a stopgap release between Windows 98 and Whistler, soon to be renamed to Windows XP. Many of the new features were available from the Windows Update site as updates for older Windows versions. As a result, Windows Me was not acknowledged as a distinct operating system along the lines of 95 or 98, and is often included in the Windows 9X series. Windows Me was criticized by users for its instability and unreliability, due to frequent freezes and crashes. A PC World article dubbed Windows Me the Mistake Edition and placed it fourth in their worst tech products of all time feature. 12. The inability of users to easily boot into real mode MS-DOS, as in Windows 95 and 98, led users to quickly learn how to hack their Windows Me installations to provide the needed service. 13. Decline. The release of Windows 2000 marked a shift in the user experience between the Windows 9X series and the Windows NT series. Windows NT 4.0 suffered from a lack of support for USB, plug-and-play and DirectX versions after 3.0, preventing its users from playing contemporary games, whereas Windows 2000 featured an updated user interface and better support for both plug-and-play and USB. The release of Windows XP confirmed the change of direction for Microsoft, bringing the consumer and business operating systems together under Windows NT. One by one, support for the Windows 9X series ended, and Microsoft stopped selling the software to end users, then later to OEMs. By March 2004, it was impossible to purchase any versions of the Windows 9X series. 14. End of service life. Microsoft continued to support the use of the Windows 9X series until the 11th of July, 2006, when extended support ended for Windows 98, Windows 98 Second Edition, SE, and Windows Millennium Edition, ME. Extended support for Windows 95 ended on the 31st of December, 2001. 15. Support ended for Windows 98. Windows 98 Second Edition, SE, and Windows Millennium Edition, ME. Kernel mode. The kernel mode parts
Yes, I'm tired, so I clicked by mistake. So then the auto reading stopped, so we had to read from the top again.
Microsoft continued to support the use of the Windows 9X series until the 11th of July, 2006, when extended support ended for Windows 98, Windows 98 Second Edition, SE, and Windows Millennium Edition, ME. Extended support for Windows 95 ended on the 31st of December, 2001. 15. Microsoft DirectX, a set of standard gaming APIs, stopped being updated on Windows 95 at version 8.08